we realize that Whitehead's thought, of course, is deeply evolutionary, okay, through and through in a deep sense. Now, he is also a profound critic of evolutionary theory, okay, especially if it's based on this mechanistic, materialistic vision of nature. Okay, he even makes the claim that this mechanistic view, materialism, doesn't even allow for real evolution, right? There's no internal development or movement if there's just dead particles bouncing around. There's movement, but there's not evolution. It also is hard to find a place for possibility, novelty, and value if all you have is dead matter in a world that is valueless in a deep sense, right? And then this divide between fact and value. Okay, well, we won't read this entire quote, but he's getting at this fact that the materialistic theory struggles in a deep way to account for real evolution, and the fact that if we look for the last couple lines here, the fact that this evolution is about expressing itself in individual embodiments and evolving in achievements of organism, ... Let's see. The organism, he says, is a unity of emergent value. Notice he's using the language of value with the emergent features, the emergent species, if you want, of evolution. A real fusion, he says, of the character of eternal objects emerging for its own sake. Okay, the character of possibilities emerging in the value experience of individual entities. Okay, now one of the issues he points to in evolution is this question of an upward trend. Okay, and we should admit, in a certain respect, that the upward innovation of evolution, if the world is really just a purely materialistic, either determined, valueless world, the fact that there's been upward innovations is pretty startling in a real sense, right? There's unexpected novelty in this process where new possibilities are realized that transcends what the past offers. I mean, think of it, millions of years ago, T-Rex and other large beings were roaming the world, and now you're here. That to me is a baffling thought. Right? There's an element of novelty. I mean, where these new things come from, right? The radically new enters the universe, and it enters our lives in certain moments as well. Okay, and some of you might be able to think about this. Okay, I'm going to read this quote to us just to set that tone, but think about how novelty functions in your own experience. Okay, this is by Ingolf Delforth, who teaches at Claremont Graduate University, or at least did. He says something new and unexpected takes place. Okay, new life when we begin our existence. Something new within our life when possibilities come our way that could not have been derived from our life hitherto, or from everything we currently do or refrain from doing. They cannot be anticipated. They take us by surprise. They are unforeseeable and unexpected, without specific purpose, unprovoked, unmerited, gratuitous. They are what turns every moment of life into an adventure, both in the positive and the negative sense. It's a nice statement, almost poetic, right? That novelty enters human life. That novelty has been a part of what the evolutionary march, in some sense, has been up to, right? It's an adventure of novelty, and it extends from your life all the way down. Okay, we get this language again. Okay, and he's confident then that this upward trend cannot be fully accounted for if you're just to view evolution in terms of survival of the fittest or natural selection, okay, which is at work in evolution. Okay, but something far more significant. Okay. We're not going to read this, but the question he raises that it doesn't explain how complex organisms ever emerged or evolved, if we're purely to look at the survival value, right? The emergence of such a general type of complex organism. Okay, so that's one critique he has of the evolutionary process. Okay, but there's another factor in evolution which is not in the least explained by the doctrine of the survival of the fittest. Why on earth has the trend of evolution been upwards? Okay. Higher and higher types have been realized. Okay, so again, he's raising this question about why has the evolutionary trend been what seems to be towards complexification? And it's hard to say who would deny that in a certain way. Okay, the only thing I'd like to point to this one is it's a great book, The Arrival of the Fittest by Andreas Wagner. I'd recommend it to everyone, where he's saying that natural selection preserves innovations, but it cannot create them. And he quotes one of the poets saying that natural selection may explain the survival of the fittest, but it cannot explain the arrival of the fittest. It's a sort of playful way of talking about how nature innovates. The innovatability is one of the language, the terms he uses. So what we're getting at here is the evolutionary, or rather the metaphysical problem of novelty. Okay, the fact that for Whitehead, let's see if this is coming up, this is an issue, okay? It's not simply that radically new possibilities are actualized, but in the course of evolution, these possibilities are enduring harmonies of value, enduring shapes of value, which merge into higher attainments beyond themselves. Okay, aesthetic attainment, look at this language, is interwoven with the texture of realization. The endurance of an entity represents the attainment of a limited aesthetic success. The endurance of an entity, well, guess what? You are an endurance of an entity. You are an attainment of aesthetic success in the universe. Now, is this a problem? A problem of novelty, problems of possibility? But they're metaphysical questions. Whitehead says, yes, these are problems. Okay, for example, where are these novel possibilities anyway? Okay, how do they even exist? How are they relevant to each emerging occasion? Right? Each occasion emerges into relevant possibilities, but there's infinities of possibilities. So the question of relevance of possibilities. How do we make sense of the fact that, say, evolution is about value attainment, and that these values seem tangled with possibilities? There seems to be real standards of value in the universe, even if we wrestle with figuring them out. Okay, so these are scientific, they're not scientific sorts of questions, right? They're philosophical problems. We want to keep these problems in mind. We're especially going to come back to them tomorrow. I'm going to skip over this. This is simply Hosinski, bringing out this problem of possibility. So evolution as the quest for value attainment in the universe, okay? Whitehead insists in some way that evolution is motivated by criteria that transcend mere survival, okay? It's about value realization. And one way he puts this is that it's not simply driven by the desire to live, right, to survive, but to live well, to even live better. And it's grounded in three corresponding types of stages, right? Being alive, you have to be alive, but you want to be alive in a satisfactory way. You want to acquire an increase in satisfaction in a deep way. Is this happening across nature? Okay, think of your own experience. We, in a deep sense, take evolution into our hands. Okay, what a monumental task. Okay, freedom, decision. You too are tasked for Whitehead with this attempt to survive, keep living, live well, and live better, right? What he's saying essentially is that what compels evolution forward in some sense is this lure for intrinsic value, okay? It's not simply about competition, ruthless survival of the fittest, but there's a deep quest for value, for novelty, for possibility. And critics of certain forms of evolution have brought this out, that there's a symbiotic, cooperative nature to it as well. Okay, it's again the case for flickering occasions, and it's also the case for you, right? These form the conditions in some sense for Whitehead in which purpose makes sense. Purpose throughout nature, purpose in your life. Okay, you too, we must struggle with the idea of living well and of living better from moment to moment.